Anyway, this speech, suddenly we get a call, stop, 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 stop. The White House has decided that Bell shouldn't go. Cancel, cancel, cancel.
Yeah.
Well, by that time, it had been out on the wire.
So they'd figured out what you were up to.
And they, someone in the White House, and we suspect it was Jim Baker, Jim Baker's office, decided that after all, Bob Jones was still too hot a topic, and perhaps Reagan had better cover his true intentions, because after all, Reagan was a born-again Christian, and as a believer in Armageddon, all the things that the Christian right believes in, but they didn't want that to be too obvious in the 1984 campaign.
Yeah.
Well, so the speech was canceled. I put it away, and it was forgotten. Except the Christian right discovered it and thought, oh, this is great. We're going to now use and organize around traditional American values and let anyone contradict us, and they'll be un-American. And we're in the glory, the great glory now, because we can use American history against our enemies.
So there it was, the genesis of the whole thing, and now you have Tim LaHaye's church with a giant American flag.
Oh yeah. And I used to pass by. I had friends living on Route 7, and I would go up and visit my daughter in Percival, and I would come back on Route 7, and there was the biggest American flag in the whole world flying by LaHaye's church. So and Beverly and Tim would come in to see that nice little Mormon. That's what Phyllis Schlafly called him, the nice little Mormon.
It's a bit demeaning. Yeah.
And they would traipse in. Chuck Heatherly of the American Heritage would bring in Viggory and the whole gang of the non-Christian right.
Yeah.
So the non-Christian right and the Christian right would come in to see Bell in hopes they would convince him, who was a real public school person and an ex-Marine, that they would be able to convince him to go along with their agenda.
Yeah.
But we then put out America at Risk, the great pamphlet that changed the whole name of the game, and we even convinced Jim Baker to let Ronald Reagan run in his second term on education and dealing with the Russians.
Oh yeah, so you've told me a little bit about that, but you mentioned in your book when that report was written up, America at Risk.
Well, what happened was, before it was formally announced, Bell was called over to the White House, Jim Baker, and said, well, let's see this report and let's see the speech. So I wrote the speech launching it. I made a very tough speech, because I wanted to save American public education. And so I put in stuff that I knew the White House would knock out. You always do that as a speechwriter. You want to see what you can get through the system. And in fact, that's the only satisfaction you get, because you get no respect as a speechwriter. We get no respect at all. But anyway, Bell went over there, and Jim Baker made a few changes. Now Bell comes back, gives me the changes, and says, put these in. And then Ann Graham from Public Affairs said, we want to see the completed speech. And what I did was I made the changes immediately with Bell over my shoulder, and we ran them off, 50 copies, and didn't put it on the wire, and kept them only to Bell, and we put Bell on the plane with the speeches so that he could officially launch The Nation at Risk with the blessings of the Reagan administration. And right then and there, Secretary Bell saved American education from the Christian right.
Yes.
Because it was then given out, becomes a tremendous hit. Everyone thinks it was a great report, which it was, and should be followed today. And Jim Baker was so pleased with it, he said, well, we're going to have Reagan run around the country now speaking about education.
Yeah.
And he did. And that was how we got Morning in America and the great Reagan landslide in 1984. True story.
Yeah, so it's, wow. So, but getting back to John McCain, so back during that period, being associated with Bob Jones University, the Reagan's people, or they thought that Bob Jones was so toxic that Reagan could not be associated with him, especially during the '84 election.
Right. In the run-up to the '84 election.
Oh, okay,
during the '84 campaign.
So now, moving forward in time,
that was one of the things Ed Meese wanted to do, was to cast Bob Jones in a proper light and get him out of a negative federal role, and then they wanted to have a positive role.
So at that point, that was the run up to the '84 election. It was Reagan's people thought it was so toxic for Reagan to be associated with Bob Jones. They didn't want him anywhere near Bob Jones or his university.
Right. And what happened, of course, was that the report was so well accepted that the right-wing Christians realized that they had lost the battle, so they fired Bell immediately after the landslide. Ed Meese took control and put in Bill Bennett.
William Moral Outrage Bennett, as you call him.
Moral Outrage Bennett.
Yeah.
So they fired Bell and put in Bennett, and the Trojan horse was, of course, school choice.
Yeah.
And
and
that
it
was
still
their
is.
attempt then to continue the demolition of public education in America.
Well, there's a covert voucher amendment or resolution on the ballot for this coming election in Massachusetts. It's endless.
They used to use tuition tax credits and vouchers. Vouchers were safer because tuition tax credits were associated with Catholics. So they decided not to have a Catholic idea, and they just switched it to vouchers. It's the same thing.
Yeah.